Okay, we back once again. We're going to be doing a walkthrough on how to create an algorithm on Ninjatrader. Now, I've seen a lot of videos out there about this, so I don't know if this is kind of, I'm just kind of throwing myself out there with a bunch of other videos, and it's not going to really stick out. But I hopefully to my audience, this will help you be able to take your strategy to the next level and be able to automate it. That's the whole idea about trading, is being able to create a system and then have the computer do it for you, so you don't have to sit there in front of the screen your whole life. The idea is to free up your time. That's the idea behind trading. So hopefully that's where we get to. And my goal is essentially to be able to create algorithms that can beat these challenges without you having to do it yourself. If you can essentially either buy this algorithm or I just give it away. I don't even know what I'm going to do yet. If you can just take it essentially and beat these challenges with Apex, so Apex or whatever other ones you want to use, Top Step, and this is mine. I'm going to leave my link in the description for Apex, so go sign up for that one, because that one goes right into Ninjatrader, which is what we're going to be using. Okay, essentially what we're going to be doing is creating this algorithm, a basic algorithm, using the no nonsense formula. The no nonsense formula essentially works like this. It's got 5 steps. It might not be exactly like this. Okay, so if you're a no nonsense trader, forex trader, sue me. Don't sue me, bro, because I'm literally just this is the basic guideline. Okay, I'm not following it exactly, but essentially it comes down to, you have an entry condition. Okay, so I'm just going to use, for the purposes of this video, I'm just going to use an SMA 10 period cross. Okay, that's going to be my entry. So when price goes above the SMA 10, we're going to essentially trigger a buy. We're going to tell the bot to buy, but we're going to put some conditions on that as well. So it's not going to just be price crossing above the SMA 10. It's going to have to be above the Kijun-sen, which literally just means baseline. It's from the Ishimoku. So we're going to take that part of the Ishimoku and give it a bullish or bearish bias. So if price is above that baseline, above this baseline, we're going to say, okay, if price is above this baseline and it crosses above SMA 10, then we're going to trigger a buy. But that's not it. That's our entry condition. Okay, so we're going to build everything else around it. So we're going to say that's our entry. It's got to be above the baseline, and then we're going to confirm it by having the RSI being above 50. Now, I don't know how this algo is going to end up. Okay, so I'm doing this kind of blind here. I don't actually use RSI or MACD. I'm just doing that because they're kind of familiar for folks. So we'll see how this actually turns out in the end. And then we're going to use MACD as well. So I'm not sure if we're going to use MACD being greater than the signal line, or if MACD greater than 0 as another confirmation. But essentially we'll have entry condition and then 2 confirmations, and then we'll have it being above baseline. This will trigger the long. So if all of this is true, then it's going to trigger the bot to buy. And then to exit the trade, we're going to use an SMA, but we're going to use a little bit longer version, so a longer period, maybe a 15, maybe a 20, and I'm going to show you guys how to optimize for these parameters. So we'll backtest for these parameters to see which ones are better. So this is a parameter 10 period, this is a parameter 15 period. So we're going to backtest to see if the 10 period is the best, or maybe the backtest shows that, okay, a 13 period is the best. And this is all very important, because if you're using the 10, it might not be profitable, but if you use the 13, say the backtest shows 13 is profitable, then you would obviously just use the 13. Just forget about the 10. Same thing here. If the 15 is profitable, we'll use it. If 20 is profitable or more profitable, then we'll use the 20 as the exit condition. So I'll show you guys how to kind of figure all that out and optimize the parameters for essentially your algorithm. So this is essentially the algorithm. Pretty simple, using basic stuff. The way you want to get into the algorithm is you basically just hit New, Strategy Builder. I'm going to kind of set this over here to the side so I can look at it as we do this. So I've created a whole bunch of different algorithms. The one I've been using is a triple EMA. So I use these 2 right here, triple EMAs. These are the only ones that have been the best out of all of these. The reason I'm using the triple EMA is because it's extremely fast but smooth moving average. And so I've tried SMAs, I've tried double EMAs, I've tried EMAs, I've tried all these different, you can see, I've tried so many different ones. Those are the ones that I like the best so far. And so right now I'm working on just a basic price triple EMA. But for here, we're just going to do this one. So we're going to do SMA cross YouTube. Okay, this is going to be our algorithm. All right, so stick with me here if you want to see how this is done. I hit next a couple times here. We want to basically just leave these alone. On bar close, just leave that as is for now. And then additional data, don't mess with that either. So we're just going to next, inputs and variables. We will come back to this page. This page is important when we go to optimize. So I'll show you guys how to set up the parameters so that you can then optimize the strategy for the correct parameters for your time frame. So it's all very important to kind of nail all that down, to refine the strategy down. So here's our conditions and actions. So we got an if all and if any. We're just going to keep it on if all. So if all these conditions are met, then it's going to do this thing. So basically, you know, if and statement, pretty easy. So it does all the coding for you. You don't have to worry about any of that. You basically just point and click. So we're going to click here, and so our first deal was entry. The entry is going to be SMA 10 cross. So what I mean by this is when price crosses above the 10 period SMA. So what we're going to do is we hit add here, and then we're going to click on price. And what I do is you can use all these different ones. You can use the weighted price, the typical price, volume price, the open, median, whatever you want to do. I just use the close. I just leave that as is. And when it crosses above, I don't mess around with this. I leave the look back period as 1. You can change this too. But when price closes and it crosses above the SMA, so we're going to just zoom down to SMA. We're using the 10 for here for now. We're going to plot it on the chart. Leave everything else as is. We got a nice little goldenrod color here. So there's our first condition. All right, boom. So we basically just created the algorithm. Like this right here is already an algorithm that you can test. So and when I do these algorithms, I always start with just one condition. So then I'll come in here, and so this is what I would start with. I would come in here, and then I hit add for the do the following. So when this happens, do this, add, order management, enter long position. And you can name it, you can set your quantity and all this stuff. I just leave it alone just so it's faster. All right, so now we have an algorithm. All right, I'm gonna go show you what this looks like here. And over time, you just hit compile, but we're gonna go in here and look at this here. I'm gonna turn this one off. And it's already off. All right, perfect. All right, so when that one's done, come in here to just a basic chart, okay, and then you're gonna go to strategies. You're gonna find your strategy. So we got SMA cross YouTube, add it. All right, and so we're adding it to our sim account. And you leave everything else alone for the meantime. You don't really need to mess with all this stuff. This stuff is, once you kind of figure out how to do the algo, you can start dealing with the slippage. You can start dealing with the different types of entry handling, all that stuff. We're just gonna hit enable. And so there you go. So now we have the basic algorithm. And so this is kind of how I usually get started. And look how well it's already done. You know, basically it bought here, and it didn't even get out of it until the market to the session closed. It bought here, so it's already making some money here. Just the basic SMA. That's the thing about the algorithm, is you don't have to get fancy with it. And so then you can see the strategy performance. So I'll do this with just one indicator, see the strategy performance. So in basically almost 2 months, it's already made, you know, essentially $1,900. I like to look at the profit factor, essentially at 2. Sortino ratio is sort of a deal. You can read about all the different risk algorithm performance metrics, but the Sortino is sort of a drawdown risk metric, which is sort of just a derivative of the Sharpe ratio, blah, blah, blah. A lot of stuff. 60% win ratio. And then I like this ratio, average win to losses. I like to see this above 1, and I like to see this profit factor above 1. So this is really good already, just basically doing this. My guess is already doing this here is once we add in the other conditions, this probably gets worse. But what's important is the drawdown. So if you want to beat the challenges, you want to make sure this max drawdown doesn't exceed your trailing stop for those funded challenges. So we're talking about doing the Apex challenge. I think the most basic one is going to be a 1500 trailing stop. So if you're testing your algo and it's going to be higher than a 1500, on the max drawdown, then you're likely to, you just have a higher chance of failing the challenge. So we don't want that to happen. So when we go to test these, we're always going to make sure to test those for that the minimum drawdown setting, and then maximum profit setting, and then we'll see if we can find some place in the middle that will be a nice fit for it. That way we can let it run and not worry about it blowing the account. Okay, so next we'll go back. We got to go back into the strategy builder because we got to add in our baseline, like I just said. So come back in here, find SMA cross YouTube. Go to zoom ahead to our conditions here. So our next condition. So we've got one condition there that gets met. We're going to add in. Now you might not have Ishimoku. I had a buddy write the script or find the script for me to import it. So you might not have that. But it doesn't really matter. The point is have a baseline. Baselines are there to just give your algorithm a bullish or bearish bias. And so I'm going to show you what I mean there. So essentially we want to make sure price is also greater than the Ishimoku Kaijinsen. So we're going to plot on chart so we can see it. I'm turning all this stuff off just because we don't need to see the cloud. We don't care about all that. We just care about that one. We don't care about Tenkan-sen. So sorry if you have to watch me click all this stuff, but I couldn't really figure out a way to default this just to show that one. So we got that showing. So now price closes as long as price is above, greater than the baseline. So we got a cross, and this cross occurs. Price closes above the SMA 10, and it's above the baseline. Now we have a trigger for the long. All right, so then we're going to add in our confirmation, which is going to be the RSI being greater than 50. And it doesn't necessarily have to be 50 if you go check the parameters. Once you optimize it, it might show it just needs to be above 30. Hopefully you're getting the idea there. That 50 doesn't mean anything. It's just a matter of adding just more confirmation. So we're just going to use the same periods, plot that on the chart. It needs to be greater than, and then you hit miscellaneous here, because that'll give you the numeric value, and then we'll just put in 50. Okay, so now we got the confirmation. So we have baseline, confirmation 1, and we're actually going to just do MACD, same kind of thing, only this time we're going to, on this side, we're going to check mark MACD, plot on chart, and then we're going to use the MACD setting here. That needs to also be greater than the MACD over here, which is going to be the average. Okay, so we want the MACD line to be greater than the average, which is going to be the slow. We're going to plot both of those on the chart so we can see them too. All right, so then we have our second confirmation. So RSI above 50, we only want to be in longs when RSI has got momentum, or price has momentum, and the trend is our friend. And then we're above the baseline, so we're at bullish bias. And then we also have our trigger line, which is the SMA. So now we need to create. So we've got all that done, and we've got our enter the long. So now we click this plus line, and we're going to create the exit condition. So the exit condition is whenever price closes, crosses below the SMA 15. And the reason I do the SMA 15 is because SMA is kind of a lagging indicator, and also we don't want to get out of the trade too fast. 10 is pretty quick, so we're going to do a 15 for now. We might change it to a 20. We're going to change the color just so we can differentiate the two. Okay, so now we got our exit condition. So if this happens, we're going to hit add over here for the exit long. So exit long. We don't need to fill any of that in because we already did. But if you wanted to get fancy with it, you can have different signals, and you can name the signals and attach the exit, or attach the condition to those signals. But for this clip, we're just going to keep everything the same. So we have our buy condition here, and then we have our exit condition here. So we got the full algorithm created now. In the next screen, you can create stop losses and stuff. I like to use the parabolic stop or the trailing stop, just as kind of a safety net in case the market just goes crazy. You got FOMC minutes coming out, and you don't want to be stuck in a trade. You don't want to be stuck in a 15-minute bar, that's down 30 handles and waiting for it to close when your exit condition is a cross on the SMA, and you're waiting for the close to happen, but it's down 30, so you're way deep in the red. you don't want that to happen. So you can have a rug pull condition protection. So it's kind of like an insurance contract. You want this to trigger. You want the exit to trigger before your stop. But just put the stop there. In my opinion, I put the stop there just as insurance, so I don't get blown up too bad in those really volatile moments if some news comes out or something like that. All right, so let's go remove that because we updated it. So we're going to go back, add it back in there. Okay, make sure to hit enable, apply. Okay, so now we have our conditions all in there, and so we're just going to kind of see how this is looking here. Sometimes it doesn't look that great, but okay, so see, we got a buy here. We had price above the 10. It was also above the, it doesn't really matter, just this red line is just going to be our exit condition. So either it exits on close, you don't have to do that, but for the challenges, you really want to make sure to be out of the market at close. So that's why I do it that way. You want to be out by 4 because you cannot have open positions from in between the time when futures are closed, like for that 4 to 5 or whatever time zone you're in. 4 to 5 is for me, I'm Central Time. So we got a buy condition here, a sell, so decent. Let's look at the strategy performance here. I bet you it's worse. Yeah, it's actually worse than if you just did the SMA, and there's a reason for that. In my opinion, it's because you have a lot more downside protection built in now than before. And so because you have more downside protection built in, your drawdown's a little bit lower, but then your profits are also going to be a little bit lower. But we're still above that 1. Remember, this was a 2 with just the basic SMA. Now it's just 1.3, but our ratio is way higher here. Look at the difference, average winning trade versus average losing trade. So these numbers, just giving you an idea of the risk reward. So I don't really look at this net profit too much because we're only looking 2 months in. So if I go back and look at this over 5 years versus just the SMA cross, I bet you this would end up being higher. But okay, so now you have your algorithm. This is going to trade on its own. So if once these conditions get met, it's going to trigger the buy. Once the condition to sell gets met, it's going to trigger the sell. Very, 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 very basic. So you're just kind of building in the conditions that you want to happen. So that's on a 15-minute time frame. You can change it to whatever time frame you want. I like to build it on the 15 just because I like to watch it and essentially you want to get 1 or 2 good trades in a day. I like to at least have that. I don't want to see anything less than 1 trade a day personally. If it's less than 1 trade a day, I'm changing the time frame, or I'm changing settings, or I'm getting rid of something. That's essentially what I'm looking at. So this is already a pretty good setup here. So now to be able to optimize it, that's the next thing. To optimize and backtest it, you have to go back into the strategy builder, go back into your algorithm, SMA cross YouTube. Watch this be the algorithm that beats all the challenges and stuff. Okay, then come to the inputs and variables. So you need to create the inputs and variables in order to be able to test for them as parameters. So we have an SMA, and then we also have a MACD. So we need to create parameters for each one of these variables, and then we also have RSI, period, and level. So quite a few different parameters to create. So first one is going to be our SMA entry parameter, which we set at 10. So I'm just going to put it in as 10. We also have our SMA exit, right, which was 15. So these are going to be tested when we optimize to see which period is actually the best. And then we have our MACD, which is, we're just going to name it fast. We have a fast period, which is always 12. And then we have a slow period, which is always 26. So we're just going to use the defaults as our first inputs, and then these will change as we optimize them. And we also have our smooth factor, and then 9. Okay, and then we also have our RSI period, right, which is going to be 14, which is the standard. And we also have our RSI level that we want it to be above or below, so that's 50. Okay, and we're probably missing one, but we'll see what we're missing here when we go back in here. Then you got to go back into each condition. All right, so then here's our period. We basically need to set it. So we're going to set it as SMA entry. So we're just connecting it to these variables here that will allow the system to optimize. So we're basically telling them telling it what we want to optimize. We're not going to optimize Ishimoku, but we are going to optimize the RSI. And you don't have to optimize everything, but I like to. So like we're not going to optimize the smooth. I just once you see what happens when you hit optimize, it creates so many variables. Every time you input a new one, it just takes that much longer to optimize it. So, for time's sake, unless you got some crazy computer or something, it's not really worth it to optimize every single little thing. But I usually try to optimize the periods more than anything. The smooth factors sometimes, like if it's MACD, I'll do the smooth, I guess, but you don't really have to do all that. So basically we're connecting fast, slow, slow, and these are all connecting back to those variables, those parameters. Okay, so basically have all that, then we have to come in here and set our exit condition, and then we're done. And then I'm going to show you how to, all right, that should be good. Then I'm going to show you how to optimize it. Once that's done, okay, so that's ready. Strategy analyzer is what we're going to hit up next. Going to pull this up here, and so backtest type, we want to go to optimization. So you can do all kinds of different optimizations, walk forward, multi-objective, which is interesting, and then AI generate, which is really interesting as well. I'll do another video on that sometime. It's kind of cool. I don't really use it that much. I've used it a few times just to get some ideas, but I don't use it that much. So SMA across YouTube, this is what we're going to optimize. So see all the parameters that were generated here. So every time we put in, we wrote in that entry, now we're able to set a range, a min-max for it to test for. So we're going to open up all of those, okay? And then we're going to just kind of find a range here. And we don't want to make it too wide, because every time you make the range a little bit too wide, if you're going to try and test for 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 different parameters, you're going to be adding on more complication to the optimization. So I keep the ranges fairly tight. So like a 7, 10, okay, then we're going to do like an 11 through 15. And then as far as the MACD goes, maybe like a 9 through 12. And then like a 22 through 26, just to kind of get an idea of, okay, where is the parameters fitting into being, maximized or optimized. Smooth factor, we'll maybe put like through a 5. RSI period, let's just throw in a 10. And then the level, hey, is it going to be better? Is it going to be better buys above 30 or better buys above 50 or somewhere in between? So on and so forth. Select your instrument. I like to just test on what I trade, which is just micro ES. Time frame. You can also optimize for time frame, but I just like to test everything on 15, like I told you before. And then you can also test for just the regular trading session or just all the time. So I just leave it on all the time personally. Include commissions, because obviously you're going to have commissions through the challenge, so you might as well include those. And then slippage, you can account for slippage. I really don't do that, just because the amounts we're trading are so small that the slippage doesn't really matter to me. So then I always check for max profit factor first, as for my first optimization, and then we hit run. And so you'll see what I mean. 210,000 iterations, and that's because we're optimizing on 8 different parameters. So the MACD kind of throws you off here, because we're adding three different parameters in here for just one indicator. So that's why the MACD kind of is a little bit cumbersome. And then you got 2 for just for the RSI. A lot of times I kind of keep the algorithms a lot easier. So we're not going to let that play out, because that's going to take too long. But that's how you would optimize it. And then once it's done, I'm going to show you once it's done here. We're just going to optimize for a couple things. Just going to change all these back to where they were. We'll optimize for the SMAs, for the entries and exit. Okay, so then we'll just we'll widen those, since there's only 2 parameters. We'll just see what it looks like. It'll be done pretty quickly here. You can see a big difference in the iteration amounts. Okay, so now it's going to give you a performance, it's going to rank the top 10 performance metrics, and it's going to give you the parameters to use. The 10.7 it's saying is the best for the entry is the 10, okay, and then the best for the exit is actually a faster exit at 10.7, okay, and that's going to give you a profit factor of 1.47. Your max drawdown is only 700. Your profit per month on this strategy would be almost $300. Your win ratio is 2, so pretty good. 40% win rate, pretty good, especially if you're making more money than you lose. That's the idea. Your average trade only makes $10, but here's the thing: if you're only trading one micro ES, so I wouldn't think about that too much. You're trading one micro ES. This would work for a big a full ES, or you could trade multiple contracts. I mean, essentially the trade statistics are gonna stay the same. Then what you do, you can come in here and backtest these. So we have 10.7, and we'll leave everything else the same, and then we can go and you can try and backtest it for, say, a couple years, okay, just to see how it does on a longer term time frame. So that would be the whole gamut of what you would want to do. What I do anyways to run through a test. Now there might be better ways to do this. You can see the stats get a little bit different. We had some max drawdown here. That was a lot larger. So then you can come in here and optimize it a little bit better. You might go optimize it for a longer time frame. You might kind of see what different settings might minimize this drawdown. That drawdown would be too big for the funded challenge over a long term, because that would exceed your trailing stops, so wouldn't want to do that. Anyways, hopefully this video wasn't too long and you're able to stick with me this whole time. There'll be more like this. If you do want to see more like this, make sure to hit the like and subscribe, and then go to Apex. Use my link in the description to sign up for your funded challenge futures account, and hopefully we'll have some algos for you to use and be able to pass those things and be able to be free. All right, we'll see you next time. Peace.